Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 12 of the book The Clean Coder by Uncle Bob C. Martin. Today, talking about collaboration. Last time we went over Chapter 11, which was all about pressure, and we talked about how professionals make commitments, how they stay, and how they can say no to many things. We talked about this in previous chapters of this book on how being a professional means saying no really to a lot of things. And really, the only things that you're saying yes to are the things that you know absolutely you can get done in a certain amount of time. So go back and check out that episode on pressure. Today, we're going to talk about collaboration. Because we all work in teams. I know as a software developer, maybe you get into software development because you want to just huddle in a corner, not be bothered, code with the lights off, and you're in like a hacker mode or something like that. And this is what Uncle Bob talks about. You know, a lot of programmers join thinking that they can just work by themselves alone and not be bothered. But that's really not the case, because at some point you're going to have to interface with people, whether that's the business, no matter where they are in the workplace. And programmers are just people that tend to really enjoy just deep work and focus. And again, like I said, not want to be bothered. But at some point you're going to have to come across other people. Some of those people are going to be your employers. So your employers are the people who pay you, the people who hire you. And you are going to have different goals or different passions than the employers or the higher ups. So it's good to be passionate. So Uncle Bob lays out an example where, hey, maybe you are just super passionate on databases and in the cloud. So when something goes wrong, you're not just trying to find the solution, you're trying to find. You have to be mindful that the people above you tend to think that time is money. They need a solution fast. They don't have a lot of time for you to be on a learning curve and learning everything you can about the problem. Your first responsibility needs to be the needs of your employer. And this means that you don't have to be a total business junkie and understand the complete ins and outs of the business team. You know, maybe you need to know exactly why you're doing this and what value it brings to the business, but you don't maybe need to understand entirely the analytics and the statistics on why that brings value. Like, you don't need to maybe understand, the percentage of sales that could increase, or etc., or the percentage of sales that maybe you're losing because this feature is not there. Understand why you are working on the stories you are working on at just like a little minimum level. But you don't need to be a complete business junkie. Your second, what I was saying earlier, if something's going wrong and you're trying to debug and you're going down rabbit holes after rabbit holes, and you probably are learning new things on how things work, but the company could be suffering. The fix needs to be out right away. Focus on that first. Don't go down the rabbit holes. If you do find yourself going down rabbit holes, we talked about this in previous chapters, excuse me, you're going to just want to go get help and bring in some assistance. And again, understand the short and long-term goals of the team, of the company, of sales. This also is not a bad thing either, understanding the internal politics of the company as well. So again, as long as you understand the short, the long-term goals of the company, of the team, understand a little bit what sales is doing, advertising, and maybe that might even be going a little bit too much. I don't know. Do I understand the sales and advertising of the company that I work for? Not exactly. I'm aware of it, but I don't understand it like they understand it. Don't get me wrong. But you do want to understand the internal politics of the company and how that affects you. who leadership is, who maybe is gunning for a leadership position, etc., etc. And don't come in late, says Uncle Bob. And he's got a story in the book about him coming in late for a demo, and the demo's not even ready. And he ends up getting fired from that position, actually, which sucks. Sorry, I was drinking some green tea. This can be a sticky relationship as well, because programmers tend to really want to own their code. Whenever programmers start to write code, they put a barrier around it. Nobody else can touch it. Hey, this is my piece of code here. And this is true, especially when the code is tied to the value of the code that you're producing. So if it leads to direct business value, which I guess all code does, but if certain code or certain features that you're working on are more valuable, people might tend to own that code a little more, to say, oh my gosh, the story that I'm working on is super important for the user interface of these stores. And I don't want anybody else to touch it. This is mine. Because if I deliver it, but Uncle Bob says you should not view your work like that. Your work should be a collective ownership. The team should own the code. It shouldn't just be an individual. A team should own the code. And you should really also try to pair as much as you can, especially on maybe big things, especially in emergency scenarios, but also like just an everyday working environment, because he says two heads are better than one. And that way you get more knowledge sharing as well between the two. And maybe you get a different perspective on how to solve and get over some blockers. So cerebellums. So there's this little funny story that Uncle Bob has where he talks about how there was an advertisement trying to bring in new recruits, new developers, and the advertisement read, "Come rub cerebellums with the best." And Uncle Bob kind of makes fun of this a little bit because he says that, oh, your cerebellum is in the back of your head. And he says, well, you can't work together with your back turned to one another, because that's how you're going to have to rub cerebellums with your back turned to them. And he said, you have to face each other when you work together. You have to smell the fear, he says. And this is kind of a funny illustration, but he's basically saying you want to be working close-knit and facing each other so that you start to understand people's emotions. You start to smell the fear of, oh my gosh, we have a bug. Oh my gosh, we got to fix it right away. So that it kind of like humanizes your coworkers. And I guess that is one downside to working from home or working remotely, is that maybe it's a little more dehumanizing. You're not there together with the other person, seeing them in person, seeing their emotions and the little intricacies. You can maybe spot it over the phone, but it's not as powerful. It's not as powerful as in person. So it's always better to work with people. You may think you work better alone, but that doesn't mean that you work better alone than the whole team does. So are you going to work better alone versus the entire team? All the other people on your team working together? I don't think so. And at the end of the day, programming is about working together with people. This is the final slide here, and these are the final words that he leaves you with in the chapter. At the end of the day, programming is about working together with people. It's about collaboration. So super, super important in this industry, in a lot of industries, in pretty much all industries. In healthcare, super important. Business, super important. In programming, again, super important. And that's going to do it, guys. It was a very short chapter. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this episode came out okay. There might have been some glitches in it, so I apologize about that. If it is bad, let me know, and I can try to re-record it. But thank you guys very much for listening. Please check out the podcast as well. Got a brand new interview coming out. And thank you. Thank you guys again for listening and the support. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.